Hey, my name is Shlomo and welcome to the Stone Age. My name is Shlomo Booklin and I'm a consultant on the cannabis cultivation.
Why are you a part of the cannabis industry?
I care about people. I think cannabis can be a very powerful medicine, and I would like to share my knowledge on how to do it properly, so people and patients can have better quality of life, better treatment for their condition, and that's my small contribution.
What is the difference between regular cannabis and medical cannabis?
There's no difference. Cannabis is cannabis.
So why do people think that there's a difference?
I don't know, but there's no difference. Cannabis is cannabis. I mean, what's the difference between a melon and a melon? Both are melons. Whatever you want to do with that, it's different. But cannabis is cannabis.
We spoke to someone, a couple of people actually, that told us, based on their definition, that medical cannabis is cannabis that is grown in perfect conditions, controlled conditions. Would you say that's a good definition of what medical cannabis is?
We didn't talk about the quality, we talked about the plant. If you talk about quality, of course there are different elements of how to ensure that the final product is according to specific quality. But your previous question was what the difference between one cannabis to another cannabis. So yes, in order to grow a better cannabis that will be much more efficient and much more healthier without any pesticides, without any mold, without any heavy metals, you have to grow it in much more controlled environment.
So basically, same plant, but if you're using it, the same plant for medical reasons, if you want the best out of it, to ensure high quality, you have to grow it a particular way.
Again, not in a particular way, just to be much more precise. Again, if you want to make sure that the medicinal that you give to a patient is effective, you have to make sure that it's grown in an environment that is clean, that you control the quality, that you control the consistency, and if you don't, then you cannot claim that there's a medicinal value because you don't know what's in it, right? If you want to know what's in it and if you want to have the consistency and you want to make sure that there's no, as I said, no heavy metals, no pesticides and things like this, you have to grow it in a specific condition.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey in becoming an expert in growing cannabis?
So I study agriculture in Israel. I graduated in Jerusalem in 1984. That's a long time ago. I worked in a couple of very distinguished companies in Israel, and I got an offer to manage a big production facility in Australia. I moved to Australia and we lived there 3.5 years. We managed just agriculture product. After Australia, I had another offer and we moved to Portugal. We managed, again, a very big farm in Portugal for 10 years. We export plants from Portugal to the rest of North Europe, mostly to England and UK, England and Holland. It was very intense. We did about 6, 7, 8 million plants every season. Some weeks we just export 250,000 plants every week. As I said, we did it for about 10 years. And after 10 years, we decided to immigrate to Canada. We moved to Canada, and I worked also with a couple of very large companies in Canada. In 2013, I think, or 2012, I don't remember, Tilray was the first company in Canada that got a license to grow it on a commercial scale. They had a couple of growers that grew, couple of plants as a hobby. However, if you want to do 5,000 plants or 50,000 plants, you don't have the same criteria as you will have your own 20 plants. So they had lack of commercial experience, and they asked me to come over and basically help them set up the facility, the floor design, the mother room, the irrigation, the fertilizer. Again, just as you do with the commercial facility. I did it for about a year. Then I joined another company, very big as well, called MedRelief. I did similar thing, basically again designed the floor, the facility, and etc. And after MedRelief, I worked with some other LP, or in Canada we call them licensed producer, and I got more and more demands for my skill, and I decided to be, instead of giving my knowledge to one company, I decided to be a consultant, and basically I share my knowledge and my experience with whoever needs it. So that's what I do now. In the past year and a half, so I did it for a couple of years in Canada. In the past year and a half, countries like Colombia, Portugal, Greece, Macedonia, Zimbabwe, and some others have kind of copy and paste with some modification the Canadian system, with some minor adjustment. And because I had a good name in the industry, and now I work on those international projects. So I have one project in Colombia, few projects in Greece, few projects in Portugal, one in Macedonia, one in Zimbabwe, one in Australia, and few still in Canada.
And then pretty soon, Caribbean, probably.
Yeah, well, definitely. I hope so. I mean, I enjoyed very much. I think people here are extremely, hospitable. I think it's again, I am enjoying sharing my knowledge, and as soon as the regulation will come here, and if they need my help, I'll be able to help here as well. Yes.
I've heard a couple of times that here is like the perfect place, as in the Caribbean, perfect place to grow cannabis. Why is that?
Very simple. If you look at cannabis plant, it's what we call in the professional botanical term, it's a plant that belongs to a group of photoperiodic, which means that the light period of the length of the light is govern the cycle of life of the plant. So in order for the plants to grow, you need to have a longer day, and in order for the plants to bloom and growing from the time that you set up the buds until the harvest, you need to have a short day. Living or having that plant close to the equator is definitely a huge advantage, because this is almost the natural day length that the plants need in order to perform the best. And that's again one of the big projects that I have in Colombia. Is very similar, just because of the same reason. In Canada or in other places around the world, you have to create artificial length day. If in the summer the days are too long, you have to cover the greenhouse with black plastic, so you create a short day, and in the winter, but the normal day or the natural day is short, you have to artificially give extra light. In Caribbean or close to the equator or in Colombia, you have that naturally, so obviously you can save a lot on automation and energy if you don't need to have the artificial light or the artificial blackout.
Let's talk growing, like types of growing techniques. Aquaponics, hydroponics, in the soil. Which way should or could Caribbean people grow the cannabis for medicinal purposes? Why?
Personally, I like to grow in soil because again, soil, we defer it to a substrate, but soilless soil. So it's a substrate with a perlite, with cocoa fiber, with peat or similar. So personally, as I said, I like to grow in that type of substrate. I don't like to grow it hydroponic. The plants are obviously in the past 50 million years have been coexist in soil, and the root system is designed to take the nutrition from the soil, not from the water. There's a couple of things in water that are very crucial. So I don't want to be too technical, but for example, warm water above 25, 26 degrees, losing the oxygen retention by 70%. You need some oxygen in the water. So if your water is too warm, you won't have oxygen to the roots, right? So again, this gives you a room of error. The plants are not as forgiving in hydroponic because smaller mistake in the pH or the CEC or the, as I said, the temperature of the water can be devastating for the plants. So that's why, as I said, at the end of the day, we are all human. We make mistakes. People make mistakes and have accidents. People drop planes because of human error. We're not there yet, but I would like to eliminate the human error, and growing in soil gives me much more a buffer. So if I have, one day high pH, the soil will basically can handle it. If I have one day or high EC or electrical conductivity, the soil can mediate it and without damaging the roots too much. So as I said, because of the human error factor, the soil gives me a buffer. So that's why I prefer soil. The World Health Organization have set up standard in 2003 of how to grow and collect medicinal plant. Cannabis, by definition, as a medicinal plant, fall under that umbrella. The two major components into those rules, actually there's three, is, as I said to you, sanitation, to make sure that the growing condition are not only condition of the growing, but the condition of the handling with the plants are sanitized and clean. The other aspect, as I said to you, it's the two aspects of the quality. So everything that touch the plant and can have or will have any influence of the final product as a raw material has to be within certain quality. And of course, the final product, before it's been released for the patient use, has to go through a laboratory that will make sure that there's no mold, there's no heavy metal, there's no residue of pesticides or fungicide or any other foreign material that will affect the patient. So those are the two elements of the quality. The third element is the documentation. So every medication that you or anyone else today buy, you have a batch, right? The batch consists of all the history of the plants from the time it's been created until it's been harvested, throughout the drying process, the extraction process, the packaging, etc., etc., until it's reached the final end user, or person or patient. So again, if I'm using eye drops and I have inflammation in the eye from those drops, I can call the company that produce it and say to them, listen, batch number, whatever the batch number is, has some kind of material in it that cause me inflammation. They will be able to track down, and obviously they will keep a sample of that batch in their facility, and they will be able to do another test on it. If it has to be, obviously, if I write, they will be able to detect it if there's something wrong with that specific batch. If you don't have that documentation and you don't have that quality assurance from the independent lab, not your own lab, then you cannot really guarantee that it's approved by in terms of quality. So as I said to you, the GACP, or Good Agriculture and Collecting Practice, consists of those three elements, which are really important for the dignity, for the product. Again, if I consider this a medicinal product, just like an eye drop or ibuprofen or paracetamol, I want to make sure that it's effective, B, it's been growing or been produced in a sterile environment, and that I have a batch, a sample or retention sample to ensure that the product, the ibuprofen that you bought, I have something to back it up. Again, if you ever complain about it, I can redo and check that batch to make sure if either you're right, or maybe something else caused you the eye inflammation. Those three components are essential part of the GACP.
Let's talk fertilizers.
Okay. Fertilizer, again, I am a commercial grower. I've grown plants for the last 35 years. I am very familiar with using what we call synthetic fertilizer. I know, and we have enough evidence over the last 50 years of modern agriculture, that we know that plants need potassium, phosphorus, calcium, nitrogen, and so on. Me as a grower, I have knowledge of what the plants need, and I can provide it to the plant just because this is what I do, right? I'm a grower and I know what the plants need in order to grow. So I have a recipe that consists of how much, or what is the percentage of calcium, what is the percentage of phosphorus, calcium, potassium, etc. And again, based on that knowledge, I can dial in specific to what the plants need. Throughout the growing season, I can look at the plants and say, okay, there's some kind of iron deficiency, and again, I'm trained enough to detect it and add iron. Or maybe there's too much phosphate, maybe it's not enough calcium. Okay, this is something that, again, I'm trained to detect when I look at the plants. Or if I do soil analysis, again, I take some of the soil and send it to a lab. They will give me a a report of how much calcium the soil have, how much potassium, etc., I can dial my fertilizer according to what the plants need and what I know it has lack of. When you use organic fertilizer, the time frame that it takes from the point where I give the fertilizer until it's available for the roots can be vary. Depends on the soil that I use, depends on the humidity of the soil, depends on the temperature of the soil, and so many other components that me, again, as a grower, I don't have control of it. I cannot dial in exactly how much potassium I have. I just, again, just for argument's sake, I use chicken manure. It is what it is, right? The plant or the soil will have to break it down until it will be available to the roots.
So what about composting? Can you compost?
Of course, yeah, you can compost, and of course it's definitely something that I recommend. However, you cannot really dial in because, again, it takes a little bit longer for the soil to break down that compost into a form that the roots can take. If you want to have consistent, you cannot really use organic fertilizer because you don't have the consistency. All right? It's not to say that you cannot grow organically, but it just have to be it will be a little bit more challenging to dial in as I said, the specific requirements that you need for the plants. And if I use today, chicken manure, and the soil is a temperature of 25 degrees and it's saturated, it will take faster for those compost or the chicken manure to be available to the roots. 3 months down the line, I can use the same chicken manure, but now the temperature of the soil is 17 degrees and the soil is bone dry. It will take me 15 days for those compound to be available for the plants. So again, the plant will eventually grow the same, but I won't be able to dial in to the same specification, and because I won't be able to dial in, the consistency of the final product might be vary, right? So one day, if I grow in the high humidity and high temperature, I will have very good results in terms of THC, CBD, CBN, and other component. 3 months down the line, the temperature will be different. The availability of those nutrition to the roots will be different. And obviously the THC, CBD, CBN, and all the other components will be different. So again, I'm losing that consistency that I, as a grower, wants to give to the patient.
I got you. So my next question is this. You talk about organic and then you're using synthetic fertilizer. So what is your take on, what is your take on GMO cannabis?
On a personal level, I don't like GMO because it's a GMO, right? So it's synthetic on the genetic level, and I don't feel that has been enough research done on GMO again on the genetic level, on how it affects on our body and what is the long-term effect on those continuously being exposed to those foreign genetic coding of the plant. I don't know if there is any GMO cannabis. I haven't heard about. I know there is corn GMO, and I know, of course, Monsanto and all of those things that they obviously do anything from sesame oil to canola oil to corn and tomatoes, etc. I haven't heard about GMO cannabis.
I haven't either, but I would imagine that since there's so many food options that are genetically modified, I would think that there might be a possibility that in the cannabis industry, we may end up going down that route.
Again, it will be up to the official in the health industry to determine if it's good enough for them and if it's good enough for the health patient. I am not equipped as a grower to make those kind of determination. We have Ministry of Health, where every country has its own Ministry of Health, and they have certain criteria of how or what standards are you doing. I mean, you can say on the same token that we can produce synthetic CBD, we can produce synthetic THC, we can produce synthetic CBN or any other component. And that's what the pharmaceutical company have done in the past 30, 40 years. They have isolated active ingredients in a plant and produce it synthetically and run some clinical trial that it's been proven according again to the ministry, to the local health ministry, that it's good enough to treat that kind of condition. If and when the ministry or the health authorities will recognize that synthetic THC, synthetic CBD, and synthetic any other one in the medicinal cannabis, then they won't need me as a grower, because they can produce it synthetically just like they do with any other medication.
I have one more question for you. Kind of like how you have fruit on a tree. Some of the fruits, say an apple tree, some of the apples would be sweeter than others. Does that translate the same when it comes to cannabis?
Sure, of course. I mean, again, you have, when you look at apples, you have many types of apples. But if you like to have Smith, or if you like to have, forgot name of apples now, but if you like that particular type of apple, because of the consistency, because of the texture, because of the sweet and sugar or whatever, or the color, you want to have the consistency in it. So yes, you have 50 types of apple, but it's up to you to go to the supermarket and I said, I like this apple for my apple cake, and I like this apple for my when I eat apple. Again, the main point is the consistency. You cannot say they're all apple. Here, you ask for an apple, and you have.
If it's the same tree, would each apple on that one specific tree be the same? And would that translate the same thing to cannabis? So would
yes,
the bud on that tree be the same?
It will be very similar.
Okay.
Very similar. However, because a plant or the tree have different branches, and the light is definitely a major component. Apple that grew on that part of the tree, on the bottom branches, won't have the same light and the same heat as apples that grew on the top of the canopy. So there will be some variation, but they won't be that big, because they still will be the same apple, the same type of apple, or the genetic of apple, which is Granny Smith or any other apple.
Answers my question. You got your permaculture question answered? Yeah. Anybody else has any other questions on growing cannabis? No? Okay, we're good. What I would love for you to do Before we get into that, is there anything you would like to add? Any piece of information, education that you'd like to share?
I would like to add that my job as a consultant is not to take anyone else's job. I'm not here to, dismiss anyone that have been doing it for the past 20 years. On the contrary, I respect the knowledge, I respect the experience, I respect the fact that they've been growing it here locally for the past 20, 30 or 11 years. I am not about to move here and take their job. I am busy enough. I'm here to share my knowledge. If they want to take it, if they want to apply it, fine. If they don't want, I'm okay with that, right? So I want to make sure that I provide help, I provide you with my experience. I will not tell you do that or do that. It is, at the end of the day, it's your project, it's your crop, it's your plot of land. If you want my advice, you can take it. If you want to have 3 advisors, you can choose the best advice that you feel. Again, I'm only here to provide knowledge and experience. I'm not about to take or to tell you the way that you did it until now is, doesn't work anymore. I'm just giving you the framework and the rules from the point of view of the patient. I care about the patient. I want to know that if you, as a cancer patient or arthritis patient or whatever you have your condition, and you find that that specific type of cannabis work for you, I want to help you to create the same consistency time after time after time after time, because I don't want you to, again, if you have arthritis, to say to you one day to use 2 milligrams, the following day, because it's been a cold, take 3 milligrams. I want to offer you a set of standard that will help you to maintain the consistency of the product.
I got you.
One more question, one more.
Yeah?
Okay, so you were talking about different species, like
Varieties, yeah.
So is there like a particular variety that you prefer for medical grade versus anything?
This is another totally different subject, right? Cannabis industry is still very, very young, and I think the next generation will be to develop strains or variety that are specific to one condition. Right now, there is not, right? So doctors cannot really tell you use that apple or use that apple or use that melon, right? We, like you said before, it's all cannabis. With time and with research and clinical trial, we'll be able to say, okay, this combination of THC and CBD is very effective for depression. This combination of THC and CBD and CBN is very effective for PTSD. That high level of THC is very effective for pain, right? So there is not enough evidence or trial or clinical trial that's been done, again, according to the medicinal standard, to say that that type of cannabis is good for your arthritis, that type of cannabis is good for your cancer, and that type of cannabis is good for your depression. Right now, because it's been illegal for the past 20, 30 years, no official body or recognized body could make those research on a medicinal level, right? You need to have those clinical trials to support it to be in the same standard as I told you before, the ibuprofen, the paracetamol, the eye drops. It's been effective, it's been studied, it's been enough evidence to support that this type of medicine is good for your condition. If you go to a doctor today and you have pain in your tooth and you have pain in your head, or if you have pain in your legs, it's a different type of pain relief that he gives you, right? Because those 3 painkillers have been studied enough to say this is good for pain in your leg, this is good enough for pain in your tooth, etc. We haven't done it. We as the cannabis industry haven't done enough research on that. This is part that is definitely, I recommend you to go and look at what research they done in Israel. They are very advanced in this, and they are very advanced in developing specific type of cannabis or specific varieties or strain, whatever you want to call it, for specific condition. And again, I can talk hours on that, but you know, you have other things, other people to interview.
When you